We have this is a situation on our hands over there at 60 Minutes because suddenly I think they're taking a page out of Rachel Maddow's block, where the inmates are running the asylum, and suddenly now the talent wants to go on air and bite the hands of all their bosses. So CBS is owned by a company called Paramount, which is run by one Sherry Redstone. And I'm sure she didn't appreciate the little escapade that came on television last night with one Scott Pelley, who used to be the talent that Bill Owens produced there at 60 Minutes. They were quite close. Bill Owens is the 60 Minutes producer who resigned because he didn't like how Sherry was getting herself involved in all of their coverage. And he decided to go on TV and say a few little pointed things about how their parent company was getting a little too involved in the process. I mean, it was one thing, right, for Bill Owens, the executive producer, to leave and send out that big note, which they got everywhere, including AP and New York Times, etc. But now they're going on to network television and kind of thumbing their nose at the boss, complaining about things because they don't like the fact that Paramount, which has a lot of money on the line, right? This is the real world, guys. Big boys, wake up. Welcome to where we are in the world today, and that is called realism. And Sherry Redstone needs to get her deal done with Skydance. And if that doesn't happen, that $2.5 billion deal goes up in smoke, and it's because of, some reasons that maybe you could have massaged along the edges. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you throw your journalism out, but I don't know if you ever had it. I mean, when you re-edit clips and re-edit clips and re-edit clips to make Kamala Harris sound like she's got something going on upstairs, I think there's some questions that can be asked. Let's go to one Scott Pelley, who got on TV last night and delivered this little number. We'll watch it together. You may have to turn the volume up. I realize some of the clip volume goes up and down, but it's still worth seeing.
Parent company Paramount is trying to complete a merger. The Trump administration must approve it. Paramount began to supervise our content in new ways.
So now what happens? In all seriousness, I mean, we got to talk about that. Do you actually need a program like 60 Minutes on CBS News? I mean, do you? If it's worth its weight, why not take it over to the streaming platform and run it there? You see, I don't know as it would actually do well other than on Sunday nights at a baked-in time ahead of all those NFL games. I mean, if you really, really want to be honest, is it really good? I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't listen to people speaking so slowly and so deliberately and reading their little scripts. I mean, there was a time and place, okay, when this was a great show. Was it Don Hewitt who ran it back in the day? And then it was taken over by one of Bill Owens' buddies who left. I don't know, was that amid some of the Me Too stuff with not that he was involved in that, but some of the other things that were going on underneath his nose? I don't know. I don't really care. What I would just say is I don't think that program could survive on its own. If you put it out there on the World Wide Web, would anybody even watch it? Probably not, okay? Because it's a very specific demo. You got to be like 88 to be able to watch it. Nothing against you 88-year-olds, by the way, that may be watching right now, but I'm guessing you're a little bit more with it because you think quickly enough that you can actually digest what I'm saying, and I don't have to slow it to a snail's pace, okay? That's like one of the things they train you to do. Read really slow at 60 Minutes. There was a time and place for that kind of genre of programming. I don't think that really exists anymore. From a business standpoint, you know me, business reporter, I'm looking at it going, why would you have that? Why would you be eating up your airtime with that? I mean, are there other programs that you could be putting on that would be less costly and perhaps less of a headache for one parent company, Paramount, Sherry Redstone? I mean, right now they're dealing with, this article is in the wrap today, FCC seeks DEI concessions from Paramount to complete Skydance merger. Don't forget, Disney has also announced that they're getting rid of both of their DEI programs because, well, DEI, if it's somehow rewarding one group over another group, would actually be against the law, like discriminatory against the Constitution, shall we say. So that's become a big issue with the FCC as they look at, say, the investigation that's going on into NBC and into ABC as well. So this is the producer. He's like, okay, we can't be independent anymore. So you know what? Okay, so fine. He's leaving, and good for him. Maybe he can start a 60 Minutes online. Not. I'm just going to say this. Look, good quality journalism has a place in the world. But journalism that is seen as to be enormously biased, but yet pretends to be something else, I don't think there's a big place for that. I just don't. I think that streaming has rocked all of these people and all of these networks and is turning traditional media on its end. And that's great because hopefully, you've come over here, you found me. I love you for doing that. And we have a very different kind of conversation here. But can this continue to exist? Doubtful. Really, really doubtful. So at this point, most industry insiders, including oneself here, Trish Regan, are questioning whether this program gets to live another day. You're paying a lot of money in salaries. I mean, not as much as you're paying apparently to Rachel Maddow over there at NBC. Oh, you wonder what Comcast wants to be done with that one, right? Rachel Maddow's getting an alleged $25 million. Reportedly, I don't know if this is correct, but the media is saying that Scott Pelley is getting $5 million. I would argue that's maybe $4 million too much for him. But in the scheme of things, hey, he's looking like a bargain compared to one Rachel Maddow. So, maybe you have a news magazine program where you don't have to pay people that much. And the 60 Minutes brand is in and of itself. When we were putting the thumbnail together, we didn't even know who to put on it, right? Because there's no face that you associate. There's no actual compelling personality. They got nothing. They just got a clock. All right. So the clock, the brand, that's it. You don't have anybody behind it driving it. I don't know as there's a huge role for that in today's society because people identify with content creators. They want to know who's packaging up this news, so to speak. And when we talk packaging, that's exactly what's going on right over at 60 Minutes. This is what they're in trouble for. So the FCC is launching an investigation into all of these networks. We know that in terms of the Skydance Paramount deal, it's really, really important to Paramount, right? Scott just told you so, right? That they get this deal done here and they need the FCC's approval to do it. We'll get more into that deal in a second, but remember what the sticking point is here? I just want to remind you, because there was that Kamala Harris interview. Donald Trump is now suing, oh gosh, I can't even keep track. It was $10 billion at first, maybe it's $20 billion now. Paramount wants to settle, right? They're like, okay, we don't want to have a hot potato on our hands. We want to make nice with the president. We don't really want to be that acrimonious to him. And so here's Kamala Harris being interviewed by the 60 Minutes correspondent. And somehow they really souped things up. The first part I'm going to show you is what aired on CBS's Face the Nation in the morning. So it had not been souped up and tricked out. And then they did a little editing. I wish they'd actually create some whiz bang and some actual interesting elements to editing rather than just rewriting effectively what the presidential candidate was saying. Here she is. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Ooh, wow. That kind of sums it up right there. She sounded a whole lot better, right, in the second edited interview as opposed to the first one that aired. That didn't really make any sense. This is not the only example. You can go back to Leslie Stahl fighting with the president saying, you are wrong. There is no evidence that laptop by Hunter Biden was ever anything other than massive Russian manipulation, misinformation, right? And he's like, no, Leslie, trust me. It's real. It's real. And he couldn't get through to her. It was epic. And she wasn't willing to actually believe that there could be any other side of the story. And so I think over the last several years, given that so many people have had this TDS on steroids, the American public have started to back away and say, okay, we need to look at all this stuff. And shows that maybe at one point in time, years ago, how long has that show been around? 50 some odd years? Maybe at one time it played a place in society. And by the way, it was a great magazine sort of puff show, right? They could interview actors like George Clooney and those sorts of things. And it was kind of fun. And back in the day when there were only 3 networks, back in the day when you had no choice, you didn't even have a remote control. You had to like get up and work the bunny ears. I remember doing that as a kid. My parents would watch 60 Minutes every Sunday night. Well, guess what? Times have changed. Media industry has moved on. You guys have not kept up the pace. Okay. And now we find out that you do all kinds of deceptive editing techniques. And you know what? The president's like, hello, which is why he's suing you. And you have the FCC saying, hello, not only are we concerned about your deceptive editing techniques, but we're also concerned about this DEI stuff, which is really big. So here he is, Brandon Carr, speaking with Bloomberg Television recently, or Bloomberg last month, saying, quote, any businesses that are looking for FCC approval, I would encourage them to get busy ending any sort of invidious forms of DEI discrimination. So Paramount, again, the parent company is CBS, that's got Pelley, the reporter making $5 million a year, decided to go on and blast last night on live television, along with other media companies, have walked back and recast their work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. The merger process, apparently, according to Deadline, has really rattled CBS News as Redstone, Paramount Global's controlling shareholder, is said to be anxious to close the transaction. In other words, she's a businesswoman. She wants to get a deal done. And she's got a bunch of 60 Minutes people running around saying, oh, but we don't like Trump. We don't like Trump. We don't like Trump. We have Trump derangement syndrome. And consequently, they want to just keep bashing him. And she's like, oh my gosh, can you guys just let up for 5 minutes so I can get my deal done? All right. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, right? But you know what? We're all big boys. We live in the real world. And if the tables were turned, they'd have no problem. You see, I think 60 Minutes has been kind of lucky because they had Biden in the White House. Did they ever tell us he was failing? No, he was fantastic. You know, he could eat all the ice cream he wanted to. Nobody at 60 Minutes was going to say boo. So Biden was fantastic. And then you had Trump in the White House before that. So they bashed him for 4 years. Prior to that, they had Obama. Oh, gosh. Was Pelley the guy who used to interview Obama all the time? Maybe that was another one. I don't know. Like I said, you get them all confused. You don't know who's actually on the show other than the clock because the show has no pizzazz, no personality, zip, zero, nada. And everybody talks really, really slow. So, again, is there a place for that in today's society? I'm curious. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you guys still watch it anymore? I realize that it's kind of, a fixture in American television, but I'm telling you, if they didn't have Sunday night at 7 o'clock, if they didn't have Sunday night ahead of the Super Bowl or the NFL or whatever it is that CBS is buying the rights to, nobody would actually watch it. It doesn't get a lot of traction online. I think it gets more play over here on this show than it ever got online. We've run that Kamala soundbite so much. So it's become a headache for the parent company. And now they're trying to get this multi-billion-dollar deal done, and they get this little gnat, this little fly that they're like, they're just kind of painful. Well, maybe journalism actually doesn't belong in that giant corporation. Did you ever think that? Like maybe you all would be better off packing your bags and doing your own thing in a different place. And you know what? Let it fail or succeed on its own. Why does it have to have Paramount backing it up? If you guys are that good, okay, you don't need the whiz-bang editing. You don't need people to talk any quicker than what we just saw. You can do this slow talking. You can do these interviews that you want to re-edit to make certain people sound good. And let's actually see if it succeeds on its own. I mean, I'll give at least the EP that credit. You know what? He didn't like what was going on, so he left. Good. That's what we do in the real world. You know what? If you are so empowered, if you've been able to save your money and you can go out on your own, that is the way to do it because this is the future and you'll have a much happier time. Trust me, life is better on the other side. But I guess Scott Pelley doesn't have that option. He's still collecting his millions of bucks, yet going on and trashing his boss. It's like Rachel Maddow going on MSNBC, totally trashing her bosses after Joy Reid gets fired. Didn't say a word about her own staff that got sent packing the same day, but wanted to send a message to the bosses. Is it really that, or are you just trying to send a message to the audience? Again, I can't really tell you who watches CBS's 60 Minutes. The only time it really resonates is when they do things like the Leslie Stahl interview, or they do things like this little thing that happened that we come and we talk about it the next day. I remember doing an interview on a Monday after 60 Minutes had done their interview with President Trump on a Sunday. So Leslie Stahl sat down with Donald Trump, did some interview. I'm out there the next day. And you know what? First of all, I don't edit it Because I've got the President of the United States, thank you very much. I'm going to actually play that thing in its entirety. And I remember the White House being like, wow, that's like so refreshing. I'm like, yeah, you gave me 40 minutes with the president. You think I'm going to cut anything out? Nope, all 40 minutes is going to air. And so we aired the thing the next night, and I got a call from the president the next day, and he's like, Trish, you made so much more news than the 60 Minutes program. He's like, it's kind of fascinating. I'm like, well, yeah, number one, I played the whole thing. They didn't. They edited you. Number two, I don't know, a 7-minute segment. What good is that really in today's new world? It's worth playing it all out. And then you take the sound bites from there and let people take the sound bites, much like we take the sound bites here on this program. But he got a kick out of it. He's like, you made way more headlines. Of course, he did criticize the Federal Reserve. I asked about the Fed because, yeah, I do care about those things. And he took the opportunity to go after Powell. Yeah. Like he still likes to do. Although he said he's not going to fire him, right? So that's the good news, guys. But you think back to that Kamala Harris interview, and you know that Donald Trump is saying, hey, I want my whatever, after all, ABC News settled for $16 million. And, he's actually upped the ante. He wants $20 billion. He's suing CBS News for $20 billion. And Sherry Redstone, you see her picture there. She's like, we got to give him something. Look, ABC, I think it was a $10 billion suit, and they settled for $16 million. 15 went to the library and another $1 million to his lawyers. They'll settle for something here because she doesn't want to be on the bad side of this administration, ever. Now, as a news organization, okay, you can't cater to whoever's in charge. Believe me, you can't. But simultaneously, you've got to recognize, okay, like the White House is saying no more DEI. Maybe as a news organization, we need to make sure that we're not employing methods of DEI. Maybe as a news organization, we ought to be doing a better job to try and get in front of all news, right? Not just constantly have it so one-sided, because I think that's actually going to result in Paramount saying, you know what, we don't need this program anymore. We don't need this headache. How much is it costing us? Well, I'll tell you what, if the merger doesn't go through, it's really going to have cost you. And I don't think that these are totally, going hand in hand. It's not like they have to do puff pieces on Donald Trump to get the merger to go through. That's not a panacea either. Don't get me wrong, before somebody misinterprets this and says, oh, Trish thinks you should be kowtowing to the administration. Positively not. And I'm the last person to have done that. In fact, if you look at my Twitter feed the other night, what was it, about 2 weeks ago, I was getting kind of nervous. Peter Navarro was running the show on tariffs. At least we have Scott Besson in there now. It's very clear. All I want is what's best for America, period. And I am very fair, and I am willing to dish it out when needed. However, I'm also a realist. And you know what? If my boss is CBS News and we're in the middle of a major $2.5 billion deal with Skydance, and it's all kind of on the line, and it's going to come down to possibly the whims of whether or not Donald Trump likes you or not, I don't know. I'm just saying, guys, wake up, smell the coffee. Maybe just be a little bit nicer. Apparently, the executive producer did not want to have to apologize. And that was one of the things that was being talked about apologizing. You can't apologize for that edit. That seems to me to be a simple, I'm sorry. Maybe we did try and make her a little bit better, but we couldn't make head or tail of what she was saying. All right. No, we probably wouldn't have extended the same good fortune for you, one Donald Trump, but we are 60 Minutes, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. They could have come up with a far more elegant way to say it than that. But now I actually think the program itself is in jeopardy of going bye-bye, 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 okay? Because no one needs it. And if it were that crucial, people would find it. Let them do a podcast, okay? They're probably going to make more money doing that anyway, if they can come up with a creative enough program that people actually want to see. Taking a look more at CBS News, this was kind of interesting. Recently Kash Patel got named as FBI director, and you could hear sort of the venom even in the anchor's voice then as she's interviewing one Lindsey Graham on Face the Nation. And Face the Nation, again, very signature program for CBS News, gets hit back with Lindsey Graham saying, he's like trolling her to his face. He's like, you know what you people in the media need to do? You know what you need to do at CBS News? You actually need to report truth. Maybe then, you'd come out and have a few more viewers. I think it's like last place. Yeah, Gayle King. She got a big bounce with that little, rocket thing with Jeff Amazon's fiance. And now they've really come back to earth in more ways than one. Pun intended. Ratings are disaster.
Okay. Ask him about going after journalists, which he's also said. I'm interested in the answer to that question.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We'll be right back.
Sure Democratic friends will ask him, and you shouldn't worry about Kash Patel.
Okay.
You should worry about reporting the news fairly, which you don't do when it comes to everything Trump.
Lindsey Graham, you're a guest on this program because we wanted to hear you out, and we welcome you back.
Okay, well, that was a gracious way to handle it, I guess. I mean, really. So this show, mark my words, probably doesn't have a lot of rope left. On Wednesday, Sherry Redstone is going to be meeting with her board. They're trying to come up with a solution to all of this. It is like do or die for this network right now, for Paramount as a whole. They want to be able to bring Skydance in. It's not clear that that's going to happen. It's not clear that they're going to get the approvals. And if she even thinks for 2 seconds it's because of what's going on at 60 Minutes, bye-bye. See you later, guys. Sorry. It's been nice. Go do a podcast. Again, better over here on the other side. And if you're good, people will actually watch. And if you're not, well then.